Oh. How do I do my intro? What is up, everybody? I'm back with another video, and this time I'm gonna tell you a pretty intense story, as you probably know from the title. I almost died. So, I've got a truck. I've got a 1990 F-150. It's pretty cool, and it's black. It looks awesome. But I decide I want to trade and get a gas saver. So I drive about 45 minutes away, and I drive to trade for this Honda. But we show up, and we both decide they're a little rough looking for what we both want. They didn't want my truck, and I'm like, I don't really want that car. That's pretty rough. Spoiler was like snapped in half. It was pretty crazy. We were looking under the hood, and I realized I didn't have oil in it. I'm like, why don't I have oil in it? I must have an oil leak. So I went, first, right off the bat, I had to go spend money and get oil and put it in there. And I get on the highway, and then all of a sudden, something under my hood blows up. And I'm like, what? And there's smoke from under the hood. So I pull off to this side, right? And I'm trying to go, but it's not going. So I'm on the shoulder, so I shut it off. I try and start it again, it's not starting. So I pop the hood, I'm like, it's probably the battery. So I'm looking at the battery, and no, it's not the battery. The battery's connected all right. So I call my dad, I'm like, yo, you're gonna have to meet me. My truck's broke down. So he meets me, okay? And we start trying to fix the truck, and if nothing's working, I try and start it. We get it started, and the engine's bouncing. And I'm like, why is it bouncing like that? I try and go, and it's not going. So he's like, okay, we're just gonna pull you to that weigh station, to that weight station. So he starts pulling me, and with this truck, it's got a racing steering wheel about this big. And without power steering, without it being started, it's kind of difficult to control. He decides he wants to go like 55 miles an hour on the shoulder. If I go left, I'm in the traffic. If I go right, I'm off a cliff. And he's like, let's go 55. So I'm like gently riding the brakes every time I want him to slow down. So I'll hit the brakes, and he just like slows down a little. I'm like, just slow down, buddy. And we pull up, and I'm like, maybe I'm out of gas. My fuel gauge doesn't work. So we go to the Quick Trip. It's about 8 miles away. And we find a gas tank. It's a gallon gas tank. And it's 8 miles away, and this truck gets about 8 miles to the gallon. I'm like, oh crap, this isn't good. So we get it, and I buy the gas, and I go back, so I'm already spending tons of money, and I put it in, right? And I'm fueling it, and he's like, okay, if this starts, go. So we put the gas tank away, and then it starts, and we're on super loose gravel, and so I just gun it, and it's like rocks everywhere. I scattered his van. It was an accident, though. It was an accident. I get to the gas station, barely get there, and I fuel it up. I'm like, okay, I'm getting home. So I start driving home, right? And I'm like, whew, I'm only 5 miles away from home. And then I get a whiff of something. I'm like, what is that smell? And then I've got my windows down, and I lean my head out the window, and all of a sudden my front left tire pops. And I'm doing 80. And it pops. Like totally shredded. I'll put a picture up now. I'm swerving now. And so what happened is it popped, and I kind of bounced a little bit, and then when the rim hit, it hit a bump, and I bounced again. And then I slide, and now I'm in the right lane, but now I'm in both lanes going sideways down the highway at 80 miles an hour. And I'm so glad nobody was there, because I would have hit them. I'm so glad my truck didn't shut off, because my power steering would have gone out and I would have been in oncoming traffic. And I'm so glad that I didn't flip it, because it was like, how did none of that happen? And I'm like, I'm not hitting the brakes because I guess that's bad or something. I didn't want to like hit the brakes and then have the tires lock up and, you know, flip me or anything. So then I turn too much. I overcorrect, as most people would do. And now I'm going this way, and my front tires are on the shoulder hitting the rumble strip. And there's like a cliff. The guardrail's covering, but there's like a cliff on the other side. But I look to the right, out my right window, and there's a semi barreling at me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. I literally thought I was gonna die. I'm going 60 still, down the highway, sliding, right? And I'm like, I see the semi coming at me going 75. I'm like, he's gonna kill me. I am gonna get hit and flip and die. But he like goes into this lane as fast as he can. He gets in this lane, and I turn back, right? And then I get off the shoulder. I get onto the shoulder, and I'm like, okay, My dad pulls up behind me. He didn't see any of that because he was a while back, because he pulls up behind me and he's like, do you have a spare? I'm like, of course I have a spare. Well, when I painted my truck, I took the spare out, so I didn't have it with me. So I look in the bed, I'm like, there's no spare. He's got a Ford, so he's like, let's see if my spare fits. So we jack it up, and the jack gets stuck. So that's one problem. And it's been like a 4-hour trip so far, and I'm just exhausted. It's hot. I just want to be done with life. The jack is stuck underneath this truck. So he gets another jack. He jacks it up, and then we forgot to loosen the lug nuts, so the tire's just spinning. So we have to let it back down. Well, he lets his jack down, and he didn't tell me. So I get underneath my truck, because when I put it under the truck and it got stuck, I got mad, so I kicked it, and it went under the truck. And since I'm off to this side, I'm high-centered a little bit. So the axle, if it's not jacked up, is about this high off the ground since the tires popped. So I get under and put my arm under the axle so I can let the jack down. So my arm's under the axle and my head is under the bumper. And this jack has this thing up like a foot in the air. And so right as I go to let it down, he screamed, I took my jack out! And I'm like, phew, already let it down, and it starts coming down. I move my arm from under the axle and I move my head as fast as I freaking possibly can. And I see the bumper go, whoo, right by my head. This close to having my head and my arm smashed into the concrete. It was pretty insane. And then he's like, you know, we don't have to tell Mom about this. And I was like, deal. Anyway, she found out because I told her. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.